What is up, everybody? Listen, last night was great. Tony Cotillo right here, The Alternative Edge, the new series on the Tony Cotillo Show that talks about fantasy football and sports betting. It's where they all come together. And last night was such a good time. We're going to do it again. I'm going to let everybody else talk about the Phillies and why they didn't get any hits tonight and why the world's going to end in Philadelphia. I don't want to even talk about that tonight. What I want to talk about is most undervalued fantasy football wide receivers in 2025. We're going to talk about two specifically, and any more that you have, hit me up in the comments and let me know. As always, all bets and always numbers are powered by our partner over at OddsShopper at OddsShopper Tales. You make sure you get over there right now, get that portfolio EV. I will have some deals for you. I promise you, coming in July to get some 3-day trials, to get some 50% off, maybe some 20% off and things of that nature. I'm telling you right now, it's where you want to be. Okay. And speaking of where you want to be right here on the Tony Cotillo Show. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe and that notification bell. You know the drill. I don't feel like saying the whole thing over and over again, but I used to do this every weekend. I love doing it especially when it comes to fantasy football season. So what better way than to do it right now as we get ready for these fantasy football drafts? Because the work has already started. It started in April with the draft. I say it all the time. You know, one free agency, a little bit, right? You get a little bit in free agency because it's all about what people changed hands, whether it be offensive line, whether about the offensive pieces, right? Could be offensive coaches, could be coordinators, head coaches. And then you talk about scheme. You figure out what that scheme is going to be. And then, you have the OTAs. You kind of get a little idea what the depth chart is going to be a little bit. And then it really, really picks up after the draft. It really picks up after the draft. And after the draft is where you say, okay, this guy's going to contribute. Okay, this guy's going to cut into this person's time. But I think the most important part of the OTAs is kind of see because you're not going to see a lot, right? You're not going to see a lot of play. You're not going to see a lot of routes. If we're talking about this, like we're talking about wide receivers, but you're just going to see some cohesion. You're going to be able to see like what quarterback and wide receiver room is working together. Are they in unison? Are they communicating? Is there problems? Are they off base? And do you have time? Listen, if he comes in and this wide receiver has, maybe they're off a little bit. Listen, it happens. They have plenty of time to get it together. However, like I will say, you got to use the eye test. I say it all the time. So we're going to use the eye test tonight. We're going to talk about some most undervalued fantasy football wide receivers in 2025. Again, right here on the Alternative Edge. My man Japan checking in. What is up, Japan? I know he's a Khalil Shakir truther. He's always been a Khalil Shakir truther. He loves Khalil Shakir. So shout out to Khalil Shakir, who's definitely won some bets for me and won me some money. But I want to talk about one guy in particular. And that guy is none other than the Denver Broncos wide receiver, Courtland Sutton. Now, I've always been a huge Courtland Sutton guy. I like the big frame. I like the physicality. Listen, he's the next coming of Brandon Marshall in that uniform for the Denver Broncos. The only thing he needed was an offensive-minded coach and somebody behind center that was going to get him the ball. Very, very simple, right? Very, very, very simple what Courtland Sutton needed. Now, he was going off, then he had that horrific injury, so you had to give him some time. And 2 years ago when he came back, it took him some time, but you start to see the flashes. Last year, though, it all came together. It really did. It all came together for Courtland Sutton. And I want to give you some stats, and these aren't from me. I give a shout out to our man, Mark Gartenberg. Okay, so I'm in the fantasy football community on X, and Mark Gartenberg. You can follow him at Mark, MARC_GARTNBERG. Does a phenomenal job, man. Like literally, like breaks down so many things before I even get to where I need to go to get my data. he's already breaking it down. And I want to give a shout out to him because this is specifically from him right here. Courtland Sutton right now, he says, is going as wide receiver 28 in Underdog. So Underdog, obviously people are doing best ball drafts. People are doing all kinds of drafts on Underdog. And right now he's going as the 28th ranked wide receiver. Now, before I even get into how ridiculous that is, you have to know, without even opening up a stat book, you have to understand and realize that that is bad. You have to say to yourself, yeah, this can't happen. 28. And I'll tell you why. Okay, he goes on. Weeks 9 to 18. Okay, weeks 9 to 18. Now, remember, this is when Bo Nix had to start to evolve a little bit, right? Weeks 9 to 18. He was a wide receiver 1 with 18.1 points per game. Had over 8.5 targets per game, a 26% target share, okay, and 2.43 yards per reception. Or I'm sorry, yards per route run. Listen, man, let me tell you something. Courtland Sutton teamed up with Sean Payton is, again, must-see TV. Now, the other thing you look at is the competition for catches, not carries, but the competition for catches. And as much as I like what Marvin Mims showed flashes of, as much as I like what, DaVante has shown flashes of, they're still not going to be able to cut in to the wide receiver 1 numbers of Courtland Sutton. Overall, he had 135 targets last year. Okay. 135 targets. Ridiculous. Okay. 81 for 10, 81 and 8. The guy was an absolute monster, man. He was an absolute monster. And one of the biggest things I look at for me, and you already heard it, 8.5 targets per game. The targets is huge, especially in an offense, right? Where you have Bo Nix at times, 8 for 17 in the first quarter. In the first half. Right there, you already knew he wasn't going to throw the ball much. But here's the best part. He wasn't going to throw the ball much. However, out of those 15 or 17 targets, 9 of them were going to Courtland Sutton. And listen to this. It gets even better. Okay? You talk about from weeks 8, which my man Mark had a profile for you. He said actually weeks 9 to 18. Okay, I'm going to go back to week 8. From week 8 in Carolina, okay, 11, 10, 9, 8, 10, 9, 9, 9, 7, 9, and 1 sixer in there. 1 sixer, okay, of targets per game. And another stat, I should say, that I really, really love is looking at his average yards per catch. And that's, to me, the brilliance of Courtland Sutton. He was never in single digits after week 3. After week 3, he was always above in double digits when you talk about yards per catch. Courtland Sutton, again, last year, 81, 10, 81, and 8. There's no way, if he stays healthy, there's no way he doesn't exceed last year's totals. If it were me and I was a betting guy, which I am, thankfully, for Odd Shopper Tales, okay, I'll bump that up to 85, and I'm going to go 1150 on the yards, and I think he can get double-digit touchdowns. Double-digit touchdowns are a premium, okay? Touchdowns alone are a premium. So I'm not going to sit here and try to justify how many touchdowns that Courtland Sutton is going to have. However, what I will say is, looking at the competition for catches, the one good thing, which I really like, that I think actually helps Courtland Sutton, is the addition of Evan Ingram. Now, the reason why I love the addition of Evan Ingram, because, again, last year, Think about the names. Greg Dolchik, who didn't really pan out to what we thought. Lucas Krull, who didn't pan out to anything. Adam Troutman, who was a flash in the pan every now and then, which is a disciple of Sean Payton. Now you bring over Evan Ingram, a high volume option coming over. Again, very athletic, can run multiple different routes, coming over from Jacksonville into this style of offense. What is that going to do? That is going to keep everybody honest in the middle of the field. Okay. So again, this is only going to open up more for Courtland Sutton. So again, he is, if not my top guy, one of my top guys when we talk about undervalued wide receivers. And right off the bat, let's look at why we're on here. Like we always like, look at his betting number when we talk about yards for his futures. And right now, again, you're not going to get many unders from me, but to me, this is a no-brainer. Courtland Sutton over 875.5 minus 110. Listen, I mean, this number is way too low. Way too low. Sorry. To get Courtland Sutton under 9 is insane. To me, to get under 950 is insane. So to get that number right there in the futures market, that's where I am going to hit. My man, see you checking in, said Broncos over their win total. He says dark horse to win the AFC West. Broncos are going to get to the big dance as a dark horse. I love that. See, you know I'm a Sean Payton guy. I love me some Sean Payton. Two guys I love are the two Sean McVay and Sean Payton. And Sean Payton shows, listen, he shows again why he's such an unbelievable head coach. People want to bury Sean Payton. They want to bury him. This guy gets the best out of his players all the time. He knows exactly what buttons to push. Okay. And it just showed last year with Bo Nix. So I love Courtland Sutton, man. Ever since he came back from that ACL injury in 2020, 2021, whatever it was, ever since he finally came back, okay? Ever since he finally came back, okay, from that devastating injury, he has, now he's going into his year 30 season, right? His age 30 season, I should say. Not concerned about that from a wide receiver. And again, I'm not concerned about the competition of catches. So lock in that Courtland Sutton. And I'm telling you what, if you're your fantasy drafts, or you're your underdog drafts, if you're wherever you're drafting right now, if you're getting him anywhere after 18, honestly, probably anywhere, in my opinion, anywhere after 15, I think is an absolute steal. Somebody's not doing their homework, man. Simple. Somebody is not doing their homework. Again, this is Tony Cotillo on the Alternative Edge, the fantasy spot for the Tony Cotillo Show, where fantasy insights meet value plays. You know, I'm all about value plays. All about value plays. You know, Tony loves him some value plays, right? So let's talk about undervalued wide receiver number 2. And we touched on him a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to touch on him again. And that is DaVante Adams. Now, I know we touched on him last night, but we didn't really go in depth. And can I just say sometimes, and I think, a lot of us can probably have the same sentiments that are in the radio business. Whenever, I would prepare for my Sunday night Sirius show, and I would break down so much data and have so many screens up, right? Because obviously it's radio. There's no video. You can't see, I have my notes all over the place. And there'd still be that wow moment when no matter how much research I would do that on any specific player or line, when I would find, a little deeper dive into it, and I would be like, wow. Well, that's what I had. I had that moment tonight. That's what DaVante Adams. Now, we all know DaVante Adams is going to a great situation. We all know that, right? We talked about that yesterday. I mean, you just talk about that 3 of Puka, DaVante, and Tutu Atwell with Kyron in the backfield, Matthew Stafford, and as always, the guru himself and Sean McVay. Listen, good things have to happen. Good things have to happen. My wow moment was the numbers he put up last year for the Jets. I didn't listen. I did not realize those numbers were that good. Now I know you're gonna say, "Oh, come on, man, they weren't that." Yes, they were. Yes, they were. What did we just talk about with Courtland Sutton? We talked about his over 8.5 targets per game. Well, guess what? Let me read these target numbers to you: 11, 13, 7, 12, 11, 12, 13, 8, 12. I am telling you, okay? I am telling you what right off the bat. I haven't even added this up. I added this up for you now: 24, 7, 31. Okay, so now we're at 43. We're at 54. Okay, we're at 66. We're at 79. We're at 87. And against Miami, he has 12. We're at 99. 99. Wow, that's insane. Okay. I mean, not 99, 69. I'm sorry. But he had 85 last year. Okay. So again, like you look at what he was able to do in that small sample size. Okay. And I say it's a small sample size because all the stuff that was going on, it wasn't easy to play for the New York Jets last year. Wasn't easy to play with Aaron Rodgers at times. It just, they weren't clicking, man. But when you go 11, 13, 7, 12, 11, 12, 13, 8, and 12, guess what? It shows you still got it. Oh, and by the way, when you're throwing up double, damn near digit week to week yards per catch averages, you still got it. And that offense was a shit show last year. So now you go and you right away step into one of the better offenses in the NFC. And we think your numbers are going to go down? Like, you think your numbers go? Why is nobody looking at DaVante Adams? You know why? Because again, we talked about the whole wide receiver moniker. We talked about that yesterday. We talked about because he's listed as a wide receiver too. And here's again, I say this with all due respect. And this is not a knock on anybody, but you're always going to have guys and girls who show up for their drafts and they draft strictly from a projected handsheet, whether it be from one of their magazines, whether it be from a digital stream, whether it be from a digital cheat sheet, whatever it is, they just draft wherever they're at, 1 through 15. The next guy up, that's who I'm taking, right? It happens all the time. And if they're drafted by tiers, guess who's going to be down lower on the tiers? It's going to be DaVante Adams because he is listed as a wide receiver too. But again, there are the people that you want to draft with because they're not in the proper room. What I mean by that is they don't have the proper mindset. They don't realize that he's not a wide receiver too. That team's going to have 2 wide receiver ones, just like Philadelphia does with DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. 2 wide receiver ones. Is he going to get more catches than Puka? No, but not many people are. But I'll tell you what, when you look at his numbers, and in 14 games, he's going to give you 141 targets. He's going to give you 141 targets in 14 games. Come on, man. And yeah, I don't know why I said 6. It's 90. He had 99 targets from week 9 to 18. And now 99, almost 100 targets, people. Almost 100 targets he had. Okay? At 9-week sample size. So that just goes to show that if you average him out to, let's give him 8 targets per week, and he played those other 3 games, that's 24. Okay, you're already at 165, and you fall in line with his better years. Even in Green Bay, when he had 169. Twice. So to think that DaVante Adams is done is ridiculous. Okay, I know he's 32, but he has not really had a lot of traction over the last 2 to 3 years. Okay, he just hasn't. Meaning they weren't hard games that he played in. They weren't hard yards that he got. So I love DaVante Adams. I see it says his red zone efficiency with Stafford is going to be crazy. He's so, Sia makes a great point. Make sure again, man, Seeking a Job. Make sure you go follow at Seeking a Job on X. If you're on X right now, man, the dude is unbelievable. And he brings up a good point. You know, coming off the line, these wide receivers, the new ones now, they just want to beat you with speed. Well, he's got like a 1-2 step off that line that you look one way, you're gone. Okay. Or I should say, he's gone. And that's one thing that you have to love about DaVante Adams. And that's one thing I love about DaVante Adams. And Sia brings it up, which good pull by him, because that's one point about the entire landscape of the wide receiver position that I forgot when we were talking about DaVante. But like I said, let's look at his betting numbers. And I still think his betting numbers, I told you, you're not going to get many unders from me. Okay. So right now, DaVante Adams, you're talking over 950.5 for plus money at plus 100. Now, I just read you the numbers. Now, I would tell you what, if this was lower down, like this was 900 or 875, like Courtland Sutton, I'd be curious on why. But it's showing you this number is going to go up, man. Like, again, you think about it. You know, it's showing you right there that right 50 yards for, right below that 1,000 moniker. I'm telling you right now, they know, I know, we know he's going over this number, man. And it's all about health. It continues. It's always going to be about health. As long as DaVante Adams can stay healthy, okay? And again, except for what happened last year with the being released and moving to teams and this and that, you look at the previous 3 years, 16, 17, 17. The guy plays games, man. The guy plays games. Over the course of his career, only twice did he play less than 14 games. Only twice. And one of them was the second year. The guy's always on the field. He's always on the field. He's still a dynamic player. And not to mention, and see, you're going to know this if you're still listening. And which you talked about red zone efficiency, which was good pull by you. Okay. But also the way that Matthew Stafford now, I mean, listen, Puka Nacua is not a tall receiver, but he enjoyed the length of Puka Nacua. He played taller than he was. To be able to go up and just out muscle those DBs in getting the ball. Well, what do you think he's going to do with DaVante Adams? He's going to love throwing that ball up to DaVante Adams. He's going to love it. He's going to absolutely love it, man. You think about, do I have to say his name or who he played with in Detroit? Okay, do we have to say his friggin' name? I don't think so. But just for the hell of you want to listen, when he was playing with Megatron and he was able to throw the ball up, man, let me tell you, man, it is a no-brainer. That's exactly what DaVante Adams brings to this team. Exactly what DaVante Adams brings to this team. And these are the kind of guys, when we talk about undervalued wide receivers, we really have to look into it, man. We do. We have to look into it, because this is where you're going to win your leagues. This is where you're going to win your best ball drafts. Okay? It is. It really, really is. Now, if you go follow Mark Gartenberg, I'm telling you right now, give him a follow at Mark, MARC _GARTENBERG. I'm so glad I found the dude drops some fantastic content. Okay? Every single day. He's in there dropping it every single day. And he's where I gave you these numbers, right? He's where I give you these numbers. Now, we talked about DaVante Adams. He was going as wide receiver 19 per mark on Underdog. Courtland Sutton, wide receiver 28 on Underdog. Yards per route run, like he says, shows wide receiver efficiency. Okay? It shows their efficiency. So they have a high YPRR and they have a high target rate. I'm gonna tell you, man, that's the guy that you want. That is the guy that you want. So again, that's what's great about these preseason drafts, that we really could start to look inside and see what all these numbers mean. Okay. Now, I can't wait to start breaking down even further quarterbacks, running backs, right? But like I've said this before, and I'll say it all along, if you just go into this and you just want to go in and say, hey, I'm going to start my fantasy podcast. I'm going to talk about Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Listen, congratulations, man. It's all good. I get it. It makes for good radio. It makes for good things. But the thing I would say about that is try to get a little different, man. Try to get a little different. One thing I will do is I'm going to give you different. So make sure you lock it in right here on the Alternative Edge, because I am going to give you different. Just like you saw my top 3 yesterday was different. Just like I said, one guy I think could be the number 1 wide receiver in football this year is Drake London. And if you had to ask me, outside the guys, okay, of the Jamar Chase of the world, and I'm a Ross St. Browns, the Justin Jefferson, the Pukas, and the Nikos, and the CD Lambs. If you want to take all these guys, AJ Browns, you want to take all these guys and say, if there was one guy on your list that was not named those guys that could finish as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football, I would tell you that it could be Drake London. And that's how high I am on Drake London. Drake London last year, I mean, again, you got to look inside because he did have multiple games where he left early. Okay. He did play 17 games, but he had multiple games where he left early. 158 targets, 100 catches for 1271 with a quarterback change, by the way. With a quarterback change, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. This is a guy who makes contested catches. This is a guy who can outmuscle anybody. I'll tell you what, man. I am so high on Michael Penix, which is why I'm so high on Drake London. And you just look at the way this wide receiver core is fixed up with Darnell Mooney being that long guy, Ray McLeod being maybe a possession guy here and there, and Drake London just doing it all. He's not a burner. We know that. He's not a guy that sprints down the field. But again, in those intermediate routes, in the middle of the field, okay, those out and goes, those post-ups, he lives there, man. He lives there. And when you have a guy like Michael Penix that isn't afraid to throw the ball across the middle, okay, with ease, that is where he lives. And again, it's just going to be another year of Michael Penix, another year of Drake London. And like I said, if you had to ask me if there was a guy who I thought could possibly be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football, not named those other guys, it's going to be Drake London. Now, let me go down real fast before we get out of here and see. I want to find you possibly another guy that I would say, here's a guy that is being undervalued a little bit. And listen, there's a couple guys on this list. There really is. When you look at players, in my opinion, that are definitely being undervalued, and it could be for several different reasons, right? And there's a lot of overvalued guys as well. But a guy that comes to mind that I think, again, just from watching what he was able to do last year. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be worried about, obviously, the drafting of Travis Hunter. I get it. And a lot of people are, should we worry about Trevor Lawrence? Not a huge Trevor Lawrence guy. But I always look at the bottom 8, 7, 6 games of how a wide receiver finishes, especially a guy that's a rookie. How did he finish? Did he fade down the stretch, or did he start to get stronger? Brian Thomas Jr., he got stronger. Okay? This dude just got better. 10, 12, 14, 13, 10, 11. That is his target rate. Okay, week 13 to 18. 4, 8, 10, 9, 7, 7. That's his catches. I read these to you because, again, I don't want to give you an overall number, because guess what? That overall number could be false. I could be like, hey, you had 39 catches in 4 games. That's great. But maybe one game he had 15. I don't know. So I'm going to give them to you like that. 4, 8, 10, 9, 7, 7. His yards, 76, 86, 105, 132, 91, 103. I say that again. Oh, by the way, he had 5 touchdowns in those 5 games. This is a guy that just continued to get stronger and continue to show that he could be open anywhere on the field. And Travis Hunter now making that offense that more explosive. That more explosive. Again, he's just going to create more space for guys like Brian Thomas Jr. So when you look at it right now of where Brian Thomas Jr. is kind of laying, okay, you would call him PTJ. Listen, he's being drafted high, man. He's being drafted high. He's being drafted as a top 8 wide receiver. I'm going to be honest with you. This is where I disagree. This is where, even though I like Brian Thomas Jr., I think in a way he's being overvalued already. He's being overvalued this early because I look at guys that are surrounding him and guys I would feel more comfortable with. Again, how are you going to draft Brian Thomas Jr. over A.J. Brown? How are you going to draft it over Drake London? I can't do it. I can't do it, man. Like, I can't do it. I like Brian Thomas Jr., but just, again, I need to feel better about him in order to take his trajectory over those 2 mainstays at the wide receiver position. So, again, I'm going to have fun with this. We're going to continue to have fun with this. But 2 guys specifically, like I said, Courtland Sutton, DaVante Adams. I'll tell you what, if you get Courtland Sutton as your 28th wide receiver, that's a freaking joke to me, man. It's an absolute joke. Like, who is doing these drafts? 28? You mean 28? Courtland Sutton is 20. Get the hell out of here, man. Get the hell out of here. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That right there, my friend, if you get him as your 28th wide receiver, you're going to win your fantasy championship. Very, very simple. Very, 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 very simple. But that's going to do it tonight for the alternative edge every night. Okay. Or I should say twice, 2 to 3 times a week, man. It's all going to depend on what's going on in Philly in the national spotlight. But tonight, I felt like, especially now, it's time to lay the groundwork to get these shows going again. On Sirius, we're like about an 8-minute segment. Some of them were 14 to 15 minutes. So I figure I'm going to do at least half a show, would be half a Sirius show without the ads, without the commercials. This go like 33 minutes, have some fun. And again, let's win some money. Again, you got the over at 875.5 on DaVante Adams. Okay. We got that right here. So let me throw this up. Okay. Or I should say on Courtland Sutton as over 875.5. That's a lock for me. We're going to go over at -110 and get your plus money, man, on DaVante Adams at over 950.5 at +100. Because I don't think that's going to stay right there at all. I really not. So we shall see. But as always, man, everybody make sure you keep checking out the Tony Cotillo Show. Make sure you follow me on TikTok, on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And listen, man, I'm having some fun. I've gone away from X, but I like to use X as just a talking platform. I do, and it's been really cool to just have my thoughts out there when it comes to fantasy football and the sports betting market. So it's been a lot of fun. So catch me here probably. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow night. Will be fantasy. We'll see. Tomorrow, Thursday, might be back just to the Tony Cotillo Show. You just never know. Just follow the Tony Cotillo Show on YouTube, and you just never know what you're going to get. But this does have its own playlist, obviously labeled the Alternative Edge, and we will have more bets, more fantasy talk. I don't know if I'm going to do DFS because I'm not a huge DFS guy. I think it's mainly going to be fantasy football, okay, which is season-long fantasy football, and it's going to be prop betting, a lot of parlays like I always do, but in the beginning, a lot of futures and a lot of mocks. So we're going to have some fun. So everybody have a fantastic evening. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll catch you back here.